All right, good morning, my biology students. Today we are talking about the central nervous system, so those cranial nerves. So for our cranial nerves are looked at using Roman numerals. So starting at 1 in Roman numerals and going up to 12, they are important in some of our everyday daily tasks, and we don't even realize it. They're important in tongue movement, so when we're licking that delicious ice cream cone, our vision, and chewing, so if you're a gum chewer, and facial expression, just to name a few. They give structure to our head and neck with these fibers. So they can either be sensory or motor fibers, some being both. Each cranial nerve has a function and it controls, and some of these nerves overlap in these functions. So we'll discuss these further in this presentation. I do want to go over one mnemonic device that has helped me when learning the cranial nerves. And this mnemonic device is written, and I'm going to change colors here because red's hard to see. And it is written ooh, 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 to touch and feel very good velvet. Such heaven. So this is one mnemonic device that you can use. So each of the beginning of the first letter is the first letter in the cranial nerves, the 12 cranial nerves. Okay, so this is one example, and I can bring this slide back up at the end of the lesson for those of you who like mnemonic devices. Another example that I'm going to give is for those of you who are doodlers, which I know I have a few of you in here. If you draw a face using the number of each of the cranial nerves, it can help you remember them and that relating function. So we have 7 for the sides of the face. We have some eyebrows, which are number 3, because they help function in the eye, and we'll see that in a moment. 2, 4, 6. 6 is also with the eyes. Number 1 is the nose, and that works with olfactory, so the smell. And we're going to talk about all of these. 5. And then we have a tongue here, it's sticking out its tongue. 9 and 12. And then we'll have 10 that represents the neck. And then some arms here will be number 11. Okay, so if this little doodle will help you, again, I will bring this back up at the end of the lesson, and you can see and make connections with each of these numbers and how they relate to those cranial nerves. Okay, so a little bit of exploring there that we're going to be doing as well. All right, so cranial nerves, the olfactory being the first one. So we know we have 5 senses. The cranial nerve that have the fiber type of sensory controls the function of our senses. The olfactory nerve controls smell, the optic nerve controls vision, and the vestibular cochlear controls our hearing. Okay, so those are the cranial nerves that are sensory. Cranial nerves that are both, there's quite a few of them. Okay, we're going to start with the first 4 here, and I do have the Roman numerals next to each of them, so you know what number they are. The ocular motor nerve is, again, the first 3 here, these are mainly motor, but they are also considered sensory. So the ocular motor has 2 functions. The first being it functions the eyelids to stay open by stimulating the muscle. The second function is that it controls and constricts the pupils, This allows the pupil to change to the surrounding light that is in its environment. The trochlear function is to control eye movement, in which it includes movement of the eyeball, both up, down, left, right, as well as in a rotational direction. So you guys can be doing some eye rolls. The adducens controls the function of eye movement, but in lateral. So if you see the picture on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see the picture is going left to right movement here. And so this specific muscle, it controls the lateral rectus muscle. This nerve enters in through the eye socket and then into the lateral rectus muscle. The trigeminal doesn't have a function with controlling eyes. So that's why I placed them out of order here on the screen. You can see I placed them out of order. And that's because I wanted to put the first three that dealt with the eyes together. So the trigeminal, it controls the function of chewing. So again, so we can chew our gum. All right, some more cranial nerves that have both sensory and motor is our facial. It is exactly what it sounds like. So this facial, it functions in giving us facial expressions. It also functions in secreting of saliva and tears. The glossopharyngeal nerve the function of the glossopharyngeal nerves are swallowing and the secretion of saliva. They function to allow taste in the back of our tongue and give us sensation in the inside of our mouth. And they also function to control blood pressure monitoring. The vagus provides stimulation to muscles of the throat and the voice box. So in more technical terms, the pharynx and the larynx. The vagus nerve is the exception of the one nerve that does not function for the head and neck solely. It does not inverting regions of the head, but it supplies function to the organs in the chest and the belly, so that thoracic and abdominal cavities, thus playing a really crucial role as a nerve in the parasympathetic nervous system. All right, our cranial nerves that are motor, there are two of them. So the accessory is also called the spinal accessory, and that's where that S in our mnemonic device comes from. This cranial nerve is a motor fiber. This means that it helps in the movement of four skeletal muscles of the pharynx, larynx, neck, and shoulders. So in my photo here, you can see that one of these is going to help move the neck, and I'm going to get there. So the accessory nerve has similar functions to the vagus nerve, but the accessory is only more motor, and the vagus nerve is both motor and sensory. The trapezius and the sternocleidomastoid mastoid muscles are the muscles that the accessory nerve innervates, so it stimulates. These muscles are responsible for head flexion, so that movement going up and down and moving our head around. The hypoglossal is the last cranial nerve when going in numerical order. So number 12, we finally got there. The function of the hypoglossal nerve is tongue movement. All right, so location of these cranial nerves. So we have different locations. So when we look at some studies that are done by scientists and how they're looking at if there's damage to any of these cranial nerves. So a study done called Disorders of the Lower Cranial Nerves, they reviewed cases of lesions of these lower cranial nerves. So again, 9 through 12, and you can see these on here. We have 9, 10, 11, and 12. So these nerves, when damaged, as we know based off of their functions, will have an impact on swallowing, taste, speech, heart rate, because it relates to our blood pressure, And in the study, it outlined that lesions are classified by trauma, genetics, infection, nutrition, metabolism. There's so many different things that can cause these lesions. A single nerve or multiple nerves, again, they're very close together, so more than one can be impacted. And an instrumental investigation can be done to determine the classification of where these lesions are and what kind of impact it'll have. So then treatment can be determined, and able to give proper treatment and get results, we need to have knowledge on the physiology and the anatomy of the infected area. And it's really important to know. So for example, if I suffer a head injury, I need to know what cranial nerves were impacted so that I can know what kind of treatment I need. So when we're looking at these, so number one, you can see is in our frontal lobe, and number two is on our diacephalon. So, and I can write these out here for you, diacephalon. And then we have our midbrain section, which includes 3 and 4. And we have our pons region, which is going to be 5, 6, 7, and 8 of our cranial nerves. So 5 through 8, 3 and 4, 2. And then our medulla is where that 9, 10, 11, and 12 are. So our medulla, which is 9 through 12. Okay, so you can see that section. So we have the medulla here, our pons regions, our midbrain, and our diacephalon here. So they, again, each section there, where they are located. All right. So thank you for tuning in. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to stick around and I can give you some more help with those mnemonic devices and give you some more tips and hints. If you're curious, there's further reading that can help expand some of your knowledge off of today's lesson. Thank you for tuning in.